You're right, man? And you were thinking you're going to have a nice shade tree in your car, huh? You're at your other office.
I wish it was, it wasn't on the high side, the house was on.
My computer is wanting to do updates.
Am I okay plugging into this electronic globe? Or Dave? Oh, is that David on there?
This slide encrusted 2 kilowatts across the Grand Road.
So,
That's pretty secure.
is that with a capital? It's the first time we've been here.
I know. You haven't had a meet here yet. Miss, is there any way to get the packet on the shared drive? Okay.
Like I can email it to you really quick.
No, I'll just pull it up. No big deal. I'm glad they're having a good old time on there. All right, we're good.
I think we're ready, Ken. Okay.
All right. Welcome everybody to our town board work session for this evening, July 6, 2020. The goal of this work session is to have the town board receive information on topics of town business from the town manager, town attorney, and town staff in order to exchange ideas and opinions regarding these topics. Members of the public that may join us tonight or join us here in attendance are asked to be recognized by the mayor before participating in any discussions of the town board. Our agenda tonight, item number 1 is our model traffic code update. Staff presentation will be co-hosted by Commander Aaron Lopez and Ms. Kim Emil, our assistant town attorney and town prosecutor. So take it away. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Rennemeyer, town board members, and my name is Kim Emil. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the town assistant town attorney and the town prosecutor for Windsor. Every now and then, the CDOT comes up with a new model traffic code. We are a model traffic code city or town, so when a traffic violation is written, it's written underneath the model traffic code section. We believe it is now time to adopt the 2020 revision to the model traffic code. The model traffic code has been the standard for local law enforcement and traffic matters for many years. At the state level, it is adopted by CDOT, Colorado Department of Transportation. We last adopted the 2010 model traffic code in 2014. Before that, we adopted the 2003 model traffic code in 2003. And so we vet, CDOT comes up with versions of new model traffic codes on a regular basis, but sometimes there's lots of mistakes in them, they just don't mesh, there's typos, and we vet them until something comes up that's solid. The 2020 version, we believe, is a solid version that the police department feels comfortable in enforcing, and I feel comfortable in prosecuting. Is this not hearing? Oh, that's my mic up there?
The mics are all on, but if you have them on with the speakers, it causes a reverb to them.
All right. Well, I'll try.
There you go.
I will try my
There
best.
you go. Go for that.
So, this traffic code has been updated with everything that's come out in the legislature up to, pretty much up through the 2019 session, including automated driving systems to electrical assisted bicycles to the golf cars, in addition to adding parental responsibility if a parent is in a vehicle with unrestrained children. In your packets, we submitted a detailed memo and a comparison version of the model traffic code where I had gone through line by line between the 2010 and the 2020, comparing and pointing out what was new and what was different. We are deleting references to all penalty provisions, deferring to our municipal code general penalty. Additionally, there are some provisions in the model traffic code that we suggest that we amend out of the model traffic code and put it into our municipal code. As, for example, there's certain parking issues that we have in the past written into the model traffic code, but it's not as the model traffic code is drafted. We believe, after discussion with the chief and Commander Lopez, that we would prefer to put them into our parking code in Title 8, Chapter 2. So, for example, 8220, we suggest that that now become parking for certain purposes prohibited instead of Model Traffic Code Section 1203. And the same thing for stopping, standing, or parking prohibited in specific places. That'll become an ordinance violation. It'll just make it easier for the officers not having to work with competing versions of model traffic codes where some of it applies to the county and some of it applies to the town. This way they'll know if it's a town violation, they'll be able to, it's easier for them. So Commander Lopez may have some comments on some of this, and we recommend that we move forward with this because we are adopting the model traffic code by ordinance, or by reference. We have to give enough opportunity to do a notice, to publish because we have to have a public hearing, so we have to publish notice 15 days in advance, and then again 8 days in advance of the public hearing. So the earliest we could get this before you, if it's your desire to proceed forward, would be the end of this month. Aaron, do you have anything to comment?
No, I have no further comments other than that the updates are pretty consistent with new technologies such as wireless phones, seatbelt regulations, and other cases that have come to the state level that are now making our traffic code more comprehensive and, again, understandable for the officers enforcing it in the field.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
I will put it out there to town board.
Just one quick question. I was trying to search it, but it's not working here. A question came up recently about rolling coal. I had looked it up in the state law. I think it's against the law to do it. It's like $100 fine.
And that's still a state statute. It's not in the model traffic code that I saw.
Okay. So I guess my question is, if somebody does that in Windsor, is it against the law? I mean, are we going to ticket them? And check
Yes,
that?
officers can still enforce that. It's an excessive exhaust matter.
Okay.
It is still enforceable, yes.
But it would go to county.
Okay. I just had the question. It's been asked to me. So.
Okay. Mr. Kozlowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I guess the
Questions. When I look through particularly your outline, Kim and Aaron, the document that was summarizing some of the changes that weren't done, a couple of things jumped out at me, I guess. One, and I'd be curious of your own thoughts of whether there's anything in here that you think may come as a surprise or cause a significant change on drivers in Windsor, I suppose. One of them it looked like a large change was the child restraint seats, which looks like it changes from 4 years old, 40 pounds, now to 8 years old, which would be quite a significant change if that's true for parents. I guess there's a reference to automated vehicle identification systems. I don't even know what that is, but it appears to allow some robot somewhere to identify my vehicle and gun me down if I'm doing something wrong. Not that Terminator wasn't a good movie, I'm just curious if that's where we're headed. And I guess there's a lot now on, of course, electric scooters and bicycles, and I'm curious where we are as a town on that and whether adopting these changes anything or causes us to have adopted a new set of rules with respect to those small motorized vehicles. So, where was I? Child restraints, generally any impact to Windsor drivers, automated vehicle identification systems to be used in enforcement, whatever that is, what are they talking about? And then the small motorized scooters and things like that. Curious.
You want to?
I can
Okay.
speak up a little bit as far as the child restraint systems and some of these updates in general, sir. Officers are also newly learning about these regulations and our legal updates. And when it comes to enforcement, understanding that officers do have latitude to give warnings and citations for certain violations. When ones are significantly new like this, they will use education in most cases unless something is egregious or a gross safety violation, in which case a citation would then be issued.
And we could also do outreach to educate.
Was he done talking? Can you hear whatever noise you make? I couldn't tell if you just struck. But am I right that it is changing from requiring restraint seats, changing from 4-year-old 40 pounds to 8 years old?
Well, it does. Under the previous, if you were under 40 pounds, and you were in a non-commercial private passenger vehicle or in a child care center vehicle, they had to be restrained. The new language now says unless you're exempted, every child under 8 and transported in a motor vehicle or a child care vehicle shall be properly restrained in the child restraint system. They also allowed up to 4-year-olds to be rear-facing if you want them to be rear-facing up that long. I think now you just have to be rear-facing up to 1 year.
So, I mean, it is, sorry, it seems like it's a significant change. So is this something that we had better, I guess, kind of post and make public to say to people, hey, guess what? The state has changed the rules regarding restraints, seats for children. It now needs to be up to 8 years old. I think that might cause a lot of people to have to go out and buy new seats for the 6-year-old kid who has a 3-year-old younger sibling. Anyway, and then how about the automated vehicle detection? What is that? Automated vehicle identification systems.
The identification of the automated driving systems, David. Which section are you
It's 110.5, page 3 of our packet.
Thanks, Mayor.
Bottom of page 3 of 240.
Well, it is, this one, they said that it makes the use of automated vehicle identification systems a matter of statewide concern, requiring uniform state standards. But it allows the local authority to adopt an ordinance authorizing its use to detect violations of traffic regulations adopted by the municipality, subject to conditions and limitations outlined. I don't know that we have the ability to do this at this time.
It would require significant purchase of equipment and training.
I guess my question is, what is an automated vehicle identification system?
Is this like a radar gun that you point at my car and you say, oh, hey, that's David's BMW? Once again, breaking the speed limit? Or what is it? Is it a thing I drive under and it identifies my vehicle? And then the second point on that, it says it allows local authority to allow the use of automated vehicle identification systems to detect violations. Is this like a trailer, a radar trailer? It allows us to. It allows us to adopt
Like a
it, but
radar
it's not-
Oh. I don't, that's a good question. I don't have the answer to what that actually is. But I think it's,
But that's license plate readers. I think this would be, rather than a visual version, it's an electronic version, is my understanding. Did you catch that?
we don't know.
Correct.
Okay.
We don't. We
Right.
have the authority to, should we choose. Okay. Yes. Did you catch that, Mr. Kozlowski? Okay.
I think I heard someone say it was kind of like the,
Used to identify vehicles by license plate. And
correct.
probably
This
pull up,
could be- We don't understand what this technology could be. It could be a number of things, but rather than visual, my understanding is it's like an electronic.
Determining a vehicle's identification number or license plate number to that individual vehicle. And this is not that we're putting this into place right now, but it's that the state statute gives the authority to municipalities to adopt this should they choose.
Right, and I guess to the extent we're adopting this code with modification, have we allowed local authorities
use
to use?
automated vehicle identification systems to detect traffic violations. I still, it seems odd to me that we're proving this and no one knows what it is. So,
That'll help him.
So, Mr. Szyslowski, what the code here that we're looking at, this specific 110.5, is not that we're putting some sort of vehicle reading technology into place, but this provision allows the town to do so later should it choose to. I understand.
Right. We don't have that capability right now.
well. Okay, all right, and then my last question was regarding the small motorized things like the little scooters and motorized bicycles, etc. And where are we currently on that? And does this change any regulations to that as far as their use in Windsor, where they can use them in Windsor? Can they go on sidewalks? Can they go on trails? I'm just curious.
No, our ordinance will still, we prohibit those on sidewalks. And particularly,
My brain went to golf cars and that, and our golf cart ordinance would prevail over this.
Mr. Szyslowski, does that answer your question?
I don't think so. Do you
He's
get
like-
it?
Well,
My neighbor has a scooter. It has a little tiny motor in it, and he goes up and down the street at about 4 miles an hour, I guess.
and I don't.
Does this,
I don't remember what our code says now. I know that we don't allow to play vehicles. Yeah,
So that would fall under a toy vehicle, Mr. Szyslowski, and we currently have municipal code that prohibits that, but does that answer your question, sir?
if that may be what we currently have, and I guess my question was, by adopting this, are we changing that? Are we
We're not
allowing it?
doing that. The town may have been a little bit ahead of the curve as far as ahead of the state, because this is the state putting those regulations into the model traffic code, whereas the town itself here, we already have municipal code in place previous to this that legislates those matters. So this won't change that. I guess you could have either or violations, so to speak, whereas if something didn't meet the municipal code, but was still a violation of the state, so we could pass it through this avenue.
So we're telling these small scooters that they cannot be ridden on the streets or anywhere in town? Trails, sidewalks?
Except private property, they'd be able to operate those there, in their own driveway or somewhere else that was private property that was not governed by the town or this ordinance, yes.
Is it true those little scooter sharing, what are those called? The things, I know they're in Fort Collins. You just grab a little scooter and you zip across.
Yeah, like the electric razor, I get that, but they, yeah. You're correct, they're probably best identified as a.
So those are illegal in Windsor right now.
They have been,
they
yes.
have been, yes.
Ms. Emil says that they have been, yes, Mr. Szyslowski.
I don't have our current model traffic code in front, or our current codes in front of me right now. I could look it up and answer you after, when we're finished.
Well, what is an auto cycle?
Where is that referred to, sir, in the documentation?
Defining term 7.5, but then it is used elsewhere in the ordinance, and I just didn't know what it was. Because it says something about an auto cycle, if it has a seat belt, they have to be using it. So I'm trying to picture what that even is. But
Is that one of the electric bikes?
I don't know.
I believe, referring to, it's not an electric bike.
I think it has 3 wheels, but not necessarily in the trike formation.
Mr. Kozlowski, so if this is what I understand it to be as well, you may have seen some of these driving around town.
Around town, it looks like a small 3-wheeled car, but it's actually classified as a motorcycle.
Yeah.
It has 2 large wheels in the front and 1 in the back, and you've seen that they sit pretty low. I know I've seen a couple riding around. This just defines those. And it goes back to some of the comments that Ms. Emo made earlier, that this whole update addresses emerging technologies and new things that have come about since some of the last traffic code updates. And that auto cycle is one of them. And again, under this definition, it would outline what exactly those vehicles are by statute.
Ms. Emil, in the code that you sent us, the model code, which is the state version, there are certain sections that are highlighted. I'm assuming you highlighted those to point out something. I didn't know if it meant these are sections we're adopting or not adopting.
The highlights are merely pointing out differences between the current code and the old code. And the version that I sent you should have had comments to the side. Are you able to see the comments?
I do not see them. No, let's see.
Oh, in the PDF?
Yeah, but you see those little boxes to it, but it's your comments about it.
I would have, well, that's how it was, yeah.
There was a ton of stuff that was highlighted within the
Right.
document, so.
If you have specific ones that you want to find out what that was, I have, my master copy has, which I thought I was giving everybody, has all the comments and what it was, whether it's a new addition or take it out or what actually changed.
Well, Kim, let's just email that out and compare the board.
Okay, I can do that. And hopefully you get that version rather than what went through the packet.
Yeah, when I look at my PDF Pro, I'm able to look at comments. It shows me the highlighted text in the comment bar, but I don't see comments that you might have made. So the fact that it was
See, when
on
I'm pulling it up, right, it's got the comment box, and I clicked on it, and I see has been rewritten, and most is new. I mean, I can see it.
I don't know if it's the software program that's interpreting what, you attach to those highlighted sections, but I can see it here. I didn't see it when I was... Yeah, when I pulled it up on my device, I did not have it, no. It's from the town's website, and it could be, the software on this computer is able to interpret that. But when I looked at it on my phone or my device, I'm not able to see comments.
Actually, I think I can see them now. I see a couple of comments, highlights. Delete 4.5, keep 6A, B, C. That looks like a comment you probably made.
Yeah, those are all my comments.
Yeah, okay, I can't see
It's
those.
that little
box. Little box next to the, yeah.
Okay, sorry, I didn't realize those were there. It might have clarified some things for me, but I guess what I'm getting out of this is we probably have to start thinking about, not now, but as sometime soon, about how we want to manage those small electric scooters and small motorized bikes, because I think they will increase in popularity. And right now, it sounds like at least from our point of view, they're not allowed to be used in Windsor, but I can assure you they are being used in Windsor.
Yeah.
So we probably need to start thinking about what.
Well, Mr. Sozowski, what it really sounds like too with a lot of this is some of the points that you brought up, if I'm kind of...
Overarching, what your comments are is that we need to, when we've adopted this or in pursuit of adoption, we need to communicate to the public what these changes are so that they know whether they're in compliance or in violation of the law.
Yeah, certainly those restraint seats are the one that jumps out I mean, but there may be others. I mean,
It's a long document, and I really skimmed through for anything obvious that popped out, but there may be other things in there. And I guess I'm still a little bit troubled by the automated vehicle identification system, just because I don't know what it is, how it works, and the old speed radar trailers, I think, went through a whole series of litigation regarding invasion of privacy and taking photos of drivers and passengers, etc. I don't know if this is related to that in any fashion.
Emma, are you able to clarify that or get clarification on
I
what
can
that is?
provide clarification on those for you. But I think that the definition of that automated bike is in the definition section of that code that I gave you. I'm pretty sure. But, and I also wanted to point out that I've been working with Wade Willis on another item that we will be bringing to you later this fall that will address the trails and parks and the use of those scooters and electrical bicycles. And it's not outlawing them entirely, but we haven't really had a chance to bring it before you yet. And we're still working out the kinks before we even present it to anyone.
Sure.
And I do agree that public outreach, especially and education, the police department's always really good about doing that when something new has been passed. And I think we can do something with communications and
Maybe to identify which of the key things in here is likely to come up with traffic stops or...
And what's actually a change. Because when you go through all the changes now that you can see the comments, you can see what's actually changed and what hasn't, and then what we're proposing that we actually change within our code. So it's not as egregious as it seems, but it does strike you as a long and intense document. I agree with that. With some new language, which is what we're trying to also come to terms with.
So small traffic codes, can we amend it locally?
We can. That's why we're here.
Right. So I mean, that's important to note for the board. Is there anything in here that you don't like? You're like, well, we don't like this one thing.
So
we don't have to adopt it. That's what we're having a work session. So whether it's automated systems or we're not sure what that is, or if you're comfortable with it, it can just be stricken out. I mean, so again, you got that flexibility.
Yeah, and today is not formal adoption or...
No, we're just talking about it. That's why you should repeat that.
But it's like 4 months to change, even if it's not a
Mr. Wilson, let me go to Mr. Bennett. He's had a question for holding for a while. Mr. Bennett?
My answer to my question about scooters and electric bicycles on trails, because she said that she and Wade are going to be dealing with that.
Right. You'll hear something this fall probably about that.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Wilson?
Just had a comment on the vehicle identification. I was just kind of reading about it, so I don't want to talk about it specifically because it looks like an emerging technology. But the concept is that you would have some kind of RFID, radio frequency ID, in your license plate, and it would address like going through tolls. It could be used to monitor people's speed. It could be used to track stolen vehicles, a whole bunch of different stuff. But obviously, it's something that's futuristic that would have to probably be adopted at the state level to even be in our license plate before we ever thought about doing it here. But I think, like the commander said, it's really something we have the option to consider in the future.
Perfect. Any other questions? Mr. Carpentier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hope this is on. So, separate paragraph, if I may, 107. I'd just like to be brought up to speed a little bit in regard to the obedience to police officers, and I was wondering what's different on this one than was different before, and I wonder if I can get a feel for what it's like out there in this, as far as this goes. What's an example of disobedience?
Let's say we're out directing traffic, for instance, and we give some sort of a lawful order to a motorist, and they disregard that. We can have the penalty has always existed, and I think what happened is this one was changed, if I'm not mistaken. It went to a Class 2 misdemeanor. It might have been a Class 1.
Might have been a Class 1 before. There was a change.
What does that mean?
It's the severity of the offense.
Right.
It's what that means. And this has always existed, and all that happened is the penalty was either made more or less severe, some change was made to it. again, the offense itself is always consistent.
I believe they just clarified it to make it a class 2 misdemeanor traffic offense. Like, the difference would be, if you are
And you are going 24 miles per hour over the speed limit, it's just a traffic infraction. Once you hit 25 miles per hour over the speed limit, it's a misdemeanor violation. So that's what, they just raised the level of it to a class 2 misdemeanor.
I was thinking obedience would be more along the lines of disrespect or fighting or not.
That would rise to a whole nother charge.
Like
into
following commands type of thing.
Right.
Yeah, following commands is what I was talking about, you know.
If you go to the level of where people are getting combative with officers, then we have resisting arrest, we have assault on a peace officer, and some other felony level offenses that are very severe.
So is class 2 making that more harsh or more less?
Depends on what it was previously. I'm not sure what the previous offense was, but misdemeanors are arrestable offenses. So misdemeanor offenses usually carry up to 1 year in county jail. If convicted is the most severe, whereas you get to your felony levels, those are Department of Corrections sentences to prison.
Just thinking of you.
Sure. Thank you.
Better be careful, Mr. Carpentier, because now that is in a different category there. Any other questions from town board? Is there, oh,
Yes, yes, I had a question here on, I guess, 239, page 5 of your memo, about the wireless telephone and anyone clarifying under 18 cannot use a wireless telephone while driving.
Correct.
So, has that always been in existence?
It's texting right now.
Okay, so I was thinking, because I saw there was no change to texting. Texting applies to all age groups.
But now they're saying if you're under the age of 18, you can't even be on a wireless phone at all.
Now, would that be wireless up to your head, or would they be able to Bluetooth it in a vehicle? Would that be a change that would have to be?
I don't know how the
Stand at the high
courts
school and get a bunch of
would
people.
turn that over, but I think the use of wireless telephone includes Bluetooth.
Any use whatsoever is the way my understanding is also.
It would be.
It would. Even the texting is right now, to be honest, sir, because sometimes people maybe I'm punching in a phone number, I'm not texting.
And that's the part of the other part that changed in this section. It requires an officer to actually see the violation in order to cite it. So if an officer is driving by and sees a young driver talking, probably, that'd be your only basis. If they're talking and there's nobody else in the car, you can probably assume they're on the phone, and that would be their basis to pull them over. But if somebody's on the phone but they don't see anything, they don't have any basis for it.
Sing-alongs, right?
Mr. Kozlowski, you have a question?
Well, I guess only relating to those,
Scooters again, because it sounds like that Cam and Wade are looking at this, and we'll probably have a regimen for us to consider in the fall. But so I'm guessing just procedurally, sometime before then, we will probably be asked to adopt this model code revision, and I'm guessing we will. I'm assuming, though, it'll be a simple matter to amend it on our own once we, in fact, create a code section or local code section for these scooters later in the fall.
Mr. Kozlowski, do you have a scooter? I'm thinking that there's something going on with the scooter at your household.
Yeah, I'm terrorized by 3 kids in the neighborhood who, hey, run 2 circles around the old man, see if we can get him to fall over. Yeah. So I'm guessing we can.
You referenced an old man that was in his neighborhood that had a scooter.
No, I'm the old man. Anyway.
Any other questions on this agenda item for tonight's work session?
Ms. Humphries, Mr. Bennett? Okay. Do you guys feel like you've covered enough with us?
Yes. Is there anything that you don't want in the model traffic code, just by looking at it?
Mr. Kozlowski and Mr. Bennett, did you hear Ms. Emel's question? She wants to know if there's anything that's in this 236 pages that we would not want to come before us for official action.
34 of them not to come before us. But, you know, that's the world we live in. I assume that if we
need more time to process.
Yeah. I mean, are we required to adopt this by the state for uniform law purposes? What would happen if we didn't?
If we don't adopt it, we'll remain with the 2010 version as we are now. But then we'll have violations with the numerous code sections, state statutes that have come up that would have to get written into county court. We wouldn't be writing them in a municipal court.
I see. Okay.
So this would take control away from the town with certain instances.
Once these are in place, we can still enforce these, and they would just be written in county court rather than municipal court.
If we don't, yeah, we don't adopt. So they're already there in the state statutes. This is pulling them into the law.
So going off of his question, are there any municipalities that have come across this that have
yanked things out or opted not to?
They all do. Everybody will, they'll tweak it to what fits them.
And that's why we're here to chat about it. We have tweaked some of it to fit us, which is by pulling things out and putting it into Windsor Municipal Code sections. At the very bottom of the draft ordinance, we go through and take care of those things. And we've done that for as long as I've gone back and found memos and draft ordinances. So we're very consistent with what we've done in the past. What we've talked about this time, though, is not striking as many things so that they're available when the technology is available. But if you would rather that we whittled it down to a much smaller version, we can do that too. Or we could just stay with what we have and the new things just go in the county. Or we have to piecemeal out ordinances.
I don't know, I guess my sense in listening to the town board and the questions that are happening is not necessarily
things that we don't think that should be in there. I think it was just questions as to why they're in there. You know what I mean? It's not objections to them. I could be wrong. I'm just trying to get consensus from what I'm seeing and hearing.
I agree. After the old ones are 10 years old, we should probably strongly consider an update.
Well, and not to get off track on this, but to send something to county, is that extra work to staff and stuff? If we didn't adopt and things have to, are we then passing through, or what's the process behind it?
It just bypasses the town entirely, so everything would be a state violation, state fines, state everything.
Okay.
Well, I would think, Mayor, that it would be less convenient for the residents. If you're still breaking law, you're getting taken, and you have to go to Weld County versus the town court. I don't think I would, if I'm gonna get cited, I think I prefer not to be for the county, so.
Well, and my guess would be, to continue on that, I would guess, not that I've done this, because I haven't, but I'm guessing county fines, county court costs, and all of that were probably higher than municipal ones as well. Maybe not.
I think the
don't know.
fines tend to be lower, but they have significantly more costs and fees that you have to pay.
Okay. So are we comfortable with staff proceeding with this document the way it is currently written, with maybe getting some clarity, or do we have all the clarity we need for staff to bring this to us towards the end of the month at our board meeting on the 25th? Mr. Sosowski, Mr. Bennett?
Well, I guess, Ken, you suggested kind of going through.
I think it's worth the brain damage. There's a model act to be adopted by as many municipalities around the state as possible to keep things consistent. I don't have a problem with that. I think some of this stuff, unfortunately, is nosebleed detail that we don't fully comprehend. I would absolutely defer to you and our police, because you both will be the ones who have to interpret and enforce this mess. So, if you all have looked through this and said we can live with it, that's probably the most important thing. other than the automated identification of my vehicle by a drone.
And,
And scooters, and scooters.
All right, well, thank you.
All right. All right. Agenda item number 2 tonight is door-to-door solicitation discussion by the same dynamic duo of staff, Commander Aaron Lopez and Ms. Emil, Assistant Town Attorney.
I was going to say, I should probably just come up. Okay, earlier this year, staff engaged in a discussion with town board at the freeze work session about the constitutionality of our existing code. At that time, although I suggested it was only a matter of time, the appellate courts had declined to extend the holding in the Reed versus Town of Gilbert, Arizona case to solicitation ordinances. Then we entered into a discussion of curfew, placing limits on the times that people could go door to door, making it stricter, and we even went out to next door for a small survey to see how the town people feel about the issue. And most of them, quite frankly, wanted us to ban solicitations altogether. So that wasn't too helpful in assessing what was going on. But since that time,
On May 15th, 2020, the 10th Circuit found that Castle Rock's entire door-to-door solicitation code was unconstitutional as it discriminated based upon content, commercial versus non-commercial contacts, which is the content-based reason for striking down the Gilbert versus Arizona, the Gilbert, Arizona sign ordinance. And then the 10th Circuit also determined that you cannot place curfew restrictions on solicitation because that infringes on First Amendment rights as well. Our existing code has the same commercial and non-commercial distinctions that Castle Rock did. Therefore, it's placing the status of our ordinance in question. So I believe this is kind of what I proposed originally, but in your packet is a proposed draft ordinance repeals all parts of our municipal code concerning content and door-to-door solicitation and hours for solicitation, leaving in place the ability to post your property for no trespassing, no solicitation, and our ability to enforce it as a trespass. And we've left in place the code section where you can't use false means to gain entrance or get permission to come onto your property. Suggestion. It's open for discussion now.
Mr. Sazowski.
Thank you. I'm guessing, so what we're left with is just simply that a person can place no solicitation and no trespassing signs on their door or somewhere, and therefore no one can solicit there. Is that right? Is it no one? Or is it, what if it's a religious message, a social service fundraising for Cancer Society? Is there a protected message that allows them to solicit, notwithstanding the constitutional right? Or if I put a sign that says no solicitation, no trespassing, does that apply to everybody?
Oh, I have to stand there and do this?
Saying no solicitation is not content-based. So there is no, that's the whole point. You're saying religious organizations or some other protected organization. That's the content-based that's, they're ruling unconstitutional. So by saying you just can't come to our door, we don't want you, you're not saying it's religious people only. You're saying everybody.
You're on mute.
Dave, can you hear
I guess we should be printing up a whole bunch of no solicitation, no trespassing signs. I saw the town apparently sold them a while back, or gave them to people.
The police department has them to give out, and if they don't have any left over, they'll have some made. And I'm using Rick's budget to say that because he's not here.
Okay. So again, if you have that sign.
No one can come to your door, period.
They
No
should
one.
not.
They should not.
And if you call the police, they will enforce it as a trespass. And a violation of this section. I mean, it really could be both.
Each by deleting curfews under First Amendment right, unless you have a sign that says no trespassing, then your First Amendment right goes out the door. You don't have it anymore because I have a no trespassing sign.
Right. What's your First Amendment right for trespassing? There isn't one.
Okay.
I got a hunch this isn't done yet, but
It's probably not.
It's probably not,
That's
but
what
that's
the
what-
direction the court has taken now, which is where I suspected it would go, but up until May, the courts had not extended it to solicitation ordinances.
Okay.
Meaning he'd be glad.
Meaning he'd be glad to pay for them.
Well, we told them that we'd get him for not coming.
Well, I've seen him downstairs at Town Hall here too on the counter.
I have some on my desk. When people come see me, they can grab them too.
Mr. Bennett.
I'm a strong believer in First Amendment and people's right to freedom of expression. I also believe that homeowners have a right to privacy, along with rights should go with responsibility. And, you know, I was a proponent before when we talked about this of a curfew that said either sundown or 7 p.m. Just out of respect for families that have children, they're putting to bed, you don't want someone knocking on your door and the dog's barking and all that stuff. So my question is, also, as I understand it, a commercial business does not have to show a business license to go door-to-door soliciting. Is that correct? That's being removed from our code?
We don't, no, I think they would still have to have a business license, but we don't, yeah, we are not going to.
What we're proposing is that we don't have anything limiting door-to-door solicitation except for your no trespass thing.
My question, I expressed my viewpoint on it. I think there's a balance between freedom of expression and responsibility, good neighbor policy, and the rights of a homeowner to have some privacy at certain times of the day. What happens if we don't change our code?
Well, we can proceed on our merry little way until somebody challenges us, and then
what
we'll
would
be
that
like
cost
Castle
us?
Rock.
What would the cost be if somebody challenges us?
Ian, do you know what it would cost to fight a case like that? I don't know the cost, but it would be just.
Mr. Bennett, Mr. Kozlowski, Mr. McCarter's approaching the bench.
Yeah.
Last one of these.
I do a solicitation, but I want some responsibility in it. So how can we do that?
So the last time that we saw something like this was in the case of panhandling, and the litigation that goes on in federal court over that, that can get very expensive very quickly, and if they prevail, we wind up paying their attorney fees. Sometimes that's in the 6 digits, depending on how far it goes. So rather than put ourselves in a position of having to defend something that we know is unconstitutional, these amendments are being recommended.
That's the answer I thought you'd give. That's not the answer I wanted to hear, though. But thank you.
Are there any other questions for?
So I have a question on that same
Yes.
line that Mr. Bennett was just clarifying. You know that solicitors can't call your phone until after 9 o'clock at night. There's that on the telephone. So why would that not be the same with someone coming to my home? Kind of on that same question line, I guess.
What the case dicta is saying is that you don't have to answer your door, just like you don't have to answer your phone.
We couldn't hear you, but
Mr. Talon said that when his dogs are barking, he's going to go to the door and find out who it is at the door. So I guess as a consensus of the board, is this something that we're comfortable moving forward with?
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, Ms. Klein?
Yes.
Yes. I have all yeses here. Mr. Bennett, Mr. Sazowski, what are your thoughts?
I don't think we have a choice. So follow the law.
There we go. Mr. Bennett?
I think you gave me
Yeah,
a
the thumbs up.
Oh,
Thank you.
sorry.
Sorry.
Two thumbs up. All right, well, moving on to agenda item number 3, harassment training video. Staff presentation by our very own Ms. Humphreys, our Administrative Services Director.
I will give a little bit of a video for you to watch on harassment. It is a requirement. So give us a couple minutes to just kind of reset and share the screen. For those of you that are in the room right now, in front of you, you do have an acknowledgement of this training. And for those of you that are virtual, I will send that to you DocuSign. We just want to make sure that we document this and you guys understand what you saw, and we can give that to CIRSA and check some boxes. So if you could just give us a few minutes, take a break. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long, okay?
Hi, I'm Frank Lozano. Today, we're going to talk about sexual harassment in the workplace. Now, most people know that sexual behavior is not appropriate on the job, yet it still continues to be a problem. Why is that? And what can you do about it? Well, we're going to show you 6 typical workplace scenes. We'll also hear comments from 2 experts in the field. The goal is to get a clear idea of what sexual harassment is and isn't. We think you'll see that there's a lot that you can do to help keep your workplace harassment-free. So let's get started by looking at one situation that brings up several different issues.
So I'm thinking I'll turn in my expenses early to avoid the rush when everybody gets back from the conference. Whoa.
Hey, dude, move out of the way. I saw her first.
Hello, darling. Where did she come from?
She's new, that's for sure.
What department do you think?
The body department.
Some people around here need to grow up.
She comes.
Oh, where are you going, baby? Yeah, no? All right, you're lost. Hey, am I right, huh? Yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
Enough.
So, what is sexual harassment? Simply stated, sexual harassment is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. The key word here is unwelcome. Keep in mind, the person who finds the behavior unwelcome doesn't have to be directly involved.
Harassment is all about perception. It's not about intent. So it's the person who's hearing the conduct or seeing it or who's exposed to it. It's how they perceive it. It's whether or not they find that conduct welcome that's important.
Third-party harassment is actually very common. This occurs when two people, usually friends, have a relationship at work that involves a lot of joking around. The third party is not part of the joking around, but is someone who witnesses it, overhears it, or is frankly offended by that kind of language or that level of joking.
Third parties who weren't intended to ever hear the conduct or be exposed to the conduct can still have a claim for harassment.
Third-party complaints also happen when the victim has to witness flirtatious behavior or romantic behavior that he or she frankly finds distracting.
The conduct of a person who's an outsider, such as a vendor, supplier, consultant, even a customer, can also result in illegal harassment. The employer is responsible for taking all reasonable steps necessary to protect its employees, even from conduct by outsiders. Sometimes, as we just saw, it's obvious that the behavior is unwelcome because it's downright rude or disrespectful. Other times, it's not so clear. This next scene explores the concept of what unwelcome means. Let's take a look.
Hey. Hey, yourself. Here, tell me what you think.
Wow, nice. I hope they appreciate it out there. Make sure the peppers are nice and thick. Catch you later. They're killing me with special orders.
Oh, tell me about it.
It's good and good looking.
Ah, lots of work.
Oh, this looks good enough to eat.
Oh, no, it's not done yet. It's not done.
No, you really outdone yourself this time.
Thanks. Oh, boy, I have a lot to do if you don't mind.
Excuse me.
Well, what do you think? We saw similar behavior from the waiter and from the chef, yet her reaction to each was quite different. Whether something is welcome or not is up to the recipient. Behavior from one person may be okay, but not from another. A compliment might be appreciated from one coworker, but from another might seem too personal. A hug or friendly touch from a friend might be just fine, but from one person, it might feel like an invasion of personal space. A comment that amuses some could actually offend others.
We do have relationships with others in the workplace. We may even touch one another sometimes at the workplace. The question is trying to give individuals who are likely to engage in that behavior a sense of when it can be a problem. And it can be a problem when you don't know what the potential reaction of the recipient is.
While some behavior is clearly inappropriate at work, sexual cartoons, crude jokes, suggestive innuendo, other things might not be so clear. If it's not obvious that the behavior is inappropriate or unwelcome, it's important to let people know when they've crossed the line. Generally, if you conduct yourself in a professional manner, it's less likely you'll have problems. Now, this next scene shows how unprofessional dress and demeanor can cause trouble in the workplace, for lots of reasons.
1900, are you kidding me? Wait, Rita, pull up that duplex you just had up there.
You know, you were killing me today. You were too funny.
He wants to see the place on 4th Avenue. We could have seen this yesterday, but he's all, no, I don't want to see anything south of Grant.
What changed his mind?
Oh, like I'm supposed to know? Hey. Ooh, new listings. I've seen that place on Geneva Street. I saw it last week. They took the whole attic and turned it into a master suite that is divine. Ooh, speaking of which, how would you like to show him that place on 4th?
Oh, what's in it for me if I do? Whoa, it's just me? Don't we have a dress code?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I see some of those outfits that she wears. I have to wonder, what was she thinking?
Hey, go back to the place on Washington, will you?
Okay.
Obviously, some people don't mind attracting sexual attention at work. But inappropriate attire or flirtatious conduct, even if appreciated by some, is likely to cause problems for others.
You want to have your employees give your customers, your clients, and the public a good impression of your company. And dresses that are too short or clothes that are too tight, things that show cleavage or that are transparent are not appropriate at work.
So it's best to save these outfits and this kind of conduct for after work. It's all part of showing consideration and respect. Now, our next story deals with the subject of workplace compliments. And while harassment is perhaps too strong a word for this, gender-based compliments can create a problem for some employees.
Hey, everyone. Hey, Alex. This is Susan, our newest associate. She's going to be working with you on the senior housing project. It's Aaron,
It's nice to meet you.
Jeffrey,
Pleasure.
Hi.
and George.
Susan, really good to meet you. I know you're gonna love it here. My, you are pretty. Alex, you old scoundrel. Where have you been hiding her?
We should move on down to the conference room.
When Alex introduced Susan to the other architects on the project, did you notice that George's comments seemed to make Susan uncomfortable? What do you think? Is it okay to compliment one another in workplace situations? Let's use common sense here. Honest and well-meaning compliments are usually not unwelcome. However, at times they can actually become a problem. In Susan's case, George went on to establish a pattern of compliments or other patronizing behavior that undermined Susan's credibility and gave the impression of favoritism to her coworkers. George focused on her appearance and gender instead of on Susan's skills or her contribution to the job. So what's the solution? Susan could talk to Alex, her boss, or someone else in the company. Or she could speak to George herself.
Tell you what, it's getting late. Let's hit it first thing in the morning.
George, one more thing.
Sure.
It's about how I'm fitting in with the team. I think some of them don't take me seriously. One reason, of course, is that I'm new here, and I don't have as much experience. But I think another reason has to do with some of the things you say to me. Don't get me wrong, you say a lot of nice things, but when you talk about how I look, it tends to undermine my credibility. It's like that's all I have to offer. And I think some of the others resent it.
Look, Susan, I had no idea I was even doing that. You think at my age I'd have learned that lesson a long time ago. It won't happen anymore. Friends?
Colleagues. I'll see you tomorrow.
Right, we got a lot of work to do.
Fortunately, Susan was able to handle this situation herself, and George was receptive to her concerns. Studies show that more often than not, by simply telling someone their behavior is unwelcome, they'll stop. But what do you do if some people just don't get it?
Happy birthday to you.
Well, don't be bashful. Open up your gift.
Very funny. Male enhancement pills. Ha ha ha. I've got to get back to work.
We want a full report, all right?
Yeah.
Hey, you sure in a hurry to try them out, huh?
What's bugging him? Can't you take a joke?
No, he could have at least said thank you.
I know. I am so sorry about what just happened. I mean, I had no idea that they planned on bringing that gift.
I know. I know they're just trying to liven things up around here, but sometimes they can carry things too far.
Well, I know that you've said something to them in the past, but it seems to be getting even worse. I mean, the joking around, the gutter language. And what about that mug that Mary brought in?
I don't know what more I can do. You know, I'm starting to hate to come to work some days.
Let's talk to Florence. I know that she's overloaded with this new product line right now, but she needs to know about this.
Okay, yeah.
Playful teasing and pranks often go too far and can contribute to an atmosphere where people feel uncomfortable at work. Remember, it's not about your intentions or your feelings, it's about the other person's perception of the behavior.
Watch the reactions of individuals when they're exposed to particular types of conduct. You when you see somebody stop laughing or frown or get upset, it's a very good indication that the conduct's not welcome.
The standard is, could it offend a reasonable person? And if it could, and it does offend this person, then it's crossed the line.
No one should have to dread coming to work because of the harassing conduct of his or her coworkers. If someone's behavior is bothering you, say something. Talk to the harasser, your boss, human resources, or anyone else in the organization who might be able to help. And if someone complains about your behavior, stop immediately. The courts have identified two forms of illegal sexual harassment: quid pro quo, meaning this for that, and the more common hostile work environment harassment. Now, what we've just seen happen to David at his birthday party is a form of hostile work environment harassment. He's asked his coworkers to stop, and yet they've continued to involve him in their inappropriate behavior. Hostile work environment harassment has been defined by the courts as ongoing, pervasive, or severe conduct of a sexual nature that unreasonably interferes with an employee's job performance or creates a hostile, offensive, or intimidating work environment. Workplace policies that prohibit harassment are usually even more strict than the law, in that they prohibit any unwelcome behavior of a sexual nature. So even though certain conduct may not yet be ongoing, pervasive, or severe, most wise employers draw the line at any unwelcome sexual conduct. Why wait until someone is hurt, embarrassed, or humiliated? It just makes sense to stop the offensive conduct before it causes serious problems. Let's see what happens when David takes the problem to his boss.
I had no idea this was happening. I'm going to talk to Mary today personally to get her side of the story, and then I'm going to address the issue with the whole group at our weekly meeting Monday morning. Let me assure you, I take this seriously. Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Well, we appreciate your help.
I was hoping you wouldn't tell anyone that I was the one who complained.
Well, I can't guarantee you that no one will find out because I'm going to have to take some action to address the problem. And to be fair, I'll have to talk to some of your coworkers to verify what happened. But I'll certainly do my best to be discreet. Retaliation is also against the law and against our policy. So please let me know if anyone says or does anything that makes either of you regret coming forward and reporting this problem. Now let's go over the details, okay?
People sometimes hesitate to involve their boss, thinking they can handle the problem themselves, or they worry about retaliation. But remember, retaliation is also against the law. Now, let's see how David's boss can step in and help.
Thanks you guys for coming here. I really appreciate it. It's very important that we follow the law, and under the law, it is illegal to discriminate or harass a person based upon their race, their color, religion, national origin, or sex, or any other protected characteristic such as age or disability. It is also against our policy. So please don't hesitate to tell me if someone's bothering you. My door is always open. And remember, you don't have to like the people that you work with, but I expect you to get along. And that means refraining from behavior that causes someone to feel embarrassed, uncomfortable, intimidated, or disrespected. It's all spelled out here in black and white, and if you have any questions, just come and see me. I'm always available.
One of the most common misconceptions about what sexual harassment is and is not is the belief that only women are victims of harassment and only men are harassers. The truth is, of course, that women can harass men and other women, and men can harass men.
Same-sex harassment doesn't depend on the sexual orientation of either party. It is the behavior that's important in determining whether harassment has occurred, not the gender or the orientation of the individuals who are involved. Now, we've already seen that the hostile work environment harassment can be verbal, visual, or physical, but it can also be the result of unwelcome sexual advances or romantic interest.
Hey, it's lunchtime. You go on without me. I'm gonna take lunch late today, so I can avoid you-know-who. For once, I just want to eat my lunch in peace.
I don't blame you. He's weird. I'll see you later, okay?
You haven't gone to lunch yet? Something's wrong. Man does not live by bread alone. Sure don't take no for an answer, do you?
Later.
Yeah. Here's a little poem from me to you, Tiffany.
Can't wait, Tiffany. No, this can't wait. It's Alan again. I thought you spoke to him. He follows me to lunch. He follows me to my car after work. He calls me at home. He sends me creepy emails. Here, look. Look, Tiffany, I've already told him that you're not interested. What more can I do? This really seems like something personal between the two of you that you should be able to handle. Besides, I mean, he really seems quite harmless. Jill, I need this to stop. Tiffany, you're right. You should not have to put up with this. Let's call HR right now and see if they can help us, okay? Okay.
Usually people stop their unwelcome behavior when asked, especially if a manager or supervisor talks to them. But even mild behavior can become a serious matter when it continues after a person has been asked to stop. Obviously, more serious steps must now be taken if the harassment continues. Discipline is sometimes needed in order to enforce company policy and to set an example to others. In some cases, discipline could even include termination. We've spent a lot of time looking at hostile work environment harassment. Now, let's look at the other form of illegal sexual harassment called quid pro quo. In a quid pro quo situation, someone in a position of power demands sexual favors in exchange for job benefits, such as a promotion, raise, good performance review, that kind of thing. Or the opposite, threatens a person's job and suggests that unless sexual favors are given, there will be a loss of job benefits. Quid pro quo is a very serious form of sexual harassment with serious consequences. Most people in positions of authority know better than to risk their careers doing something this foolish. Therefore, it doesn't happen as much these days. And when it does happen, quid pro quo harassment can take a very subtle form.
All right, all right, all right. Woo. They're looking good, Coach. They gonna be ready for the big game Saturday?
Bet. We're ready now.
Well, you make sure they play as a team. You know how I like team players. I thought you might be interested to know what the committee decided. You're in the top 3.
Oh my gosh. Really? I can't believe it. Head coach of the women's team. Do you think I have a chance?
Well, it all depends. You know, as athletic director, my vote carries a lot of weight. I know how closely I have to work with the head coach, you know, with all the extra hours during season and all the traveling. I mean, it's crucial that we get along well.
What are you getting at?
Well, I'm just saying it's a very important decision, one that I think you can help me make. I mean, I have to admit that I have certain reservations about recommending you. But I'll bet you could convince me if you really tried. Now, if I were you, I wouldn't let this opportunity slip away. So you give it some thought. I have to make my recommendation in 10 days.
Everything okay, Coach? Yeah, fine.
Obviously, if the athletic director is actually threatening to not recommend the coach for the job unless she agrees to sexual favors, something quite serious has just happened. Serious and illegal. The consequences of this kind of behavior, conditioning a promotion on sexual favors, if proved, would likely result in the termination of the harasser. No one should have to put up with quid pro quo harassment ever. So, what is sexual harassment? Well, we know that it's unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. The victim can be the intended recipient of the behavior, or the victim can be a third-party observer. The harasser can be a supervisor, a manager, or a coworker, or an outsider who's not even an employee. Employers must act reasonably to protect their employees from harassment, regardless of the source. Behavior crosses the line when it's not welcome, not returned, and not appreciated. Sexual behavior that offends, intimidates, humiliates, or insults is never appropriate in the workplace. And provocative dress and flirtatious conduct can cause problems too. Remember, intentions don't matter. Harassment is viewed from the victim's perspective. Hostile work environment harassment is ongoing, pervasive, or severe behavior that affects a person's ability to do his or her job or creates a hostile environment. Retaliation is also against the law. That means that people who report harassment or who participate in an investigation are protected. The most serious form of harassment, quid pro quo, happens when someone with power offers job benefits in exchange for sexual favors, or threatens the employee if the sexual overtures are rejected. So, what can you do to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace? Know what it is. Know your employer's policy. If someone complains about your behavior, stop. Don't wait for a chat with your boss, or worse. If someone's behavior is bothering you, say something. Tell the harasser. Tell a coworker who can help. Tell your manager. And don't hesitate to tell your manager's manager, or HR, or anyone else up the chain of command who can help. Remember, we all can do something to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. By conducting ourselves in a manner that doesn't interfere with others' ability to do their jobs, and by treating others with respect, we help create a working environment that benefits everyone. It's up to you.
Good to go? Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, well, item number 4 on our agenda this evening is...
Mr. Hale, do you have anything to add to that?
Mayor, I would just say that we haven't seen each other since the strategic plan update. One of the items that came out that we discussed with Cheryl is different topics the board would like to see. And so we intend in the next couple of days to sit down with staff and work through kind of some of those items that the board have identified and get them peppered into the future meetings agenda. So this next time you see it in a week, we'll look a lot more updated. I think we'll have a lot more content in here.
Okay.
The second part of that is, we have 2 upcoming meetings. So one is with the DDA. I think that we've set that meeting to discuss 4th Street on the 10th, which is a Friday. That was the day that worked for most people. And so we'll be doing that. The second one is we're looking at dates, I think in August, to do the citizens meeting on our strategic plan. So Christine Martin set out some dates for the board so we can at least get your reaction, know when you're available. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, please do that as soon as possible. And then we'll get that date set as well.
Okay. Do we have any thoughts about when these items that have been postponed would come back? The Bryson Zerby Playground dedication, they're on our future meetings, future events. So I just was curious for the public's sake if those are going to come back before us or what the timeline might be.
Right, thank you, Your Honor. So I think right now, as long as the state is restricting groups of people, all of these events really require a lot of people to be in close proximity to celebrate. So as long as we're kind of under that safer at home, protect your neighbor, size of groupings, these will be postponed. And so conversely, as soon as the state lifts those restrictions and we can, meet in larger groups, and we'll get these scheduled right away.
Okay. Any other questions from town board on future meetings? Agenda? Mr. Kozlowski, Mr. Bennett? Comments? Concerns, questions? Okay. Mr. Bennett?
You're muted, sir.
You're on mute, sir. You're on mute. There we go.
There we go. Two questions for staff. One is, how did things go on the 4th of July? And second question was, where are we with replacements of people for advisory and commissions?
I can answer to the advisory board.
Yeah.
We are making sure we have our ducks in a row, which in the positions that are open, and we will put those advertisements out this week and get those settled.
Okay, and I did the stuff on the 4th of July. I did a report in from Chief Klimek, kind of on the 4th and then on the 5th. You know, so from a park standpoint, Boardwalk Park was busy, as it always is. But the reports that I got is that evening, because we had the 4th of July, we had the fireworks going and rain dance, we didn't have the huge groups in Boardwalk Park, which was really the intent of moving them. You know, we wanted to make sure that we weren't unwittingly encouraging people to gather in really large groups and be unsafe with COVID. So I know that Boardwalk Park specifically was, you know, even though it was busy during the day, we didn't have those large throngs, you know, 5, 6, 7 people deep. I know that on 13, we were able to patrol that, get the cars from parking there. We had that posted for no parking. We closed New Liberty, so we didn't really have any issues with that either. I think that we did have a lot of complaints and a lot of illegal fireworks that day, so our officers were responding all day long to that, but that is nothing new. I understand that the I-25 from basically Longmont to the Wyoming state line was people who were going to buy those fireworks. So I think that as a state, we did a great service to the state of Wyoming by purchasing them out of ordinance. So other than that, I mean, I think it was good. I think the feedback I got from staff and what I've seen on social media is most people were appreciative that we were able to keep the show and take it up to rain dance. Obviously, there are neighborhoods that have never really seen it before that now got a pretty good show. Obviously, anybody who is in kind of the main downtown part didn't have as good of a show as they normally had. So I think for the most part, the comments were really positive. And I think, and I hope people understand it was moved specifically for COVID, and that, you know, I'd rather bring them back to the lake in the future as well if we can. So anyway, that's, I don't know if that gets to your question or not, Ken, but, yep. Yep.
Well, written in question from Mr. Soslowski, and it says it looked like there was a grass fire near the launch site. Launch site, was there?
I don't know, sir. If there was, it was extinguished immediately because I didn't have any report of a fire. So I think sometimes that ordinance, you know, goes off and just singes everything, but I didn't have any report of a fire.
I was just going to echo Mr. Hale's comments. The feedback that I got was that it went off good. Everybody that is on the south side of town, you know, and those that could see it enjoyed it as it being on at the highest point in town. But that there would be certainly the desire to move it back to our previous position if, you know, the scenario is different next summer. So.
Say feedback that I received, we loved it being higher than the ranch. So, and of course our neighborhood loved it where it was at. So I could understand on the downtown area, but it was wonderful. So being able to see them from your house.
The other part of the spectrum, I was getting calls from people. I said, well, it's probably because of the virus. I said, I expect it to be back at the lake.
Right, yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, when we were kind of in the mode of can we keep this show and how can we do that responsibly, really the entire conversation was about COVID and how do we keep the throngs of people and for anybody who's enjoyed our fireworks show from Boardwalk Park itself, you can attest to it's just the throngs of people there. It's just a dense cluster, right? It's so many people. So we just didn't think we could do that responsibly. We didn't think we could comply with the state's order and do that. So really by putting it up at Rain Dance, we were able to secure that perimeter, keep anybody from clustering up there. We were able to patrol 13 and post it and keep people from clustering there. So really, that was all just kind of the public safety message, and just doing that and encouraging people to you know, not get ahead of themselves. So overall, I think that the comments I've seen have been really positive. I think, you know, and I hope people realize that it was really a COVID deal. Like next year, hopefully we're way past this virus. We'll put it at the lake, and then probably get, you know, everybody else to say, well, hey, I'm up in rain dance, and I liked the show last year. So anyway, so any other questions on that?
No, thank you. I think it was a good decision to go ahead with the show. So I know we almost canceled it. So
You're right. Yeah, we were very close, and certainly I had a little view of it. It was pretty far away, but it was.
we're kind of spoiled on the west side. You get the Loveland started, and you had a pretty good view. Then all of a sudden Windsor was closer and nice and loud.
It's all about your topography and where, you know, you have the best view, so.
Yeah, so it's always going to be, somebody always have the better view, but like you said, I think it's temporary this year, and hopefully we eventually get back to normal. I think that's what everybody wants.
Mr. Carpenter.
No, I haven't seen that. I think, you know, Loveland was pretty clear that they were going to do it. You know, I think some of the complaints I heard from the Loveland show were the exact same complaints I heard of ours, which is it's in a different location. And people that were used to being in Loveland to seeing it, and really they couldn't see it. Also, I think Loveland capped it at 1,000 vehicles. So even if you have 4 people in a car, that's 4,000 people enjoying a show in a community that's, what, 60, 70,000 people. So, no, I didn't hear that. And I heard a lot of people, I think, that were more along the lines. It was great. I got to see a little bit of the Windsor show. I got to see a little bit of the Loveland show. If you're up north like I am, get to see the Timness show up close and personal. So I think between that and Greeley, at least, we had a good Northern Colorado representation. You know, it was really painstaking for me. You know, I shared this before, thinking, you know, is canceling the right thing, is keeping going. And I can tell you at 9 o'clock on Saturday, I was certain that collectively we made the right decision, keeping it. I think it was well worth it, and I do hope next year we can kind of put all this other stuff behind us, just have it back to normal, and maybe appreciate it a little bit more, you know. I also say with that, we did talk to the board about doing some things in addition for the 4th. One of those, you know, really what I'd like to do is just take and line Main Street with flags up and down and bring them out on Memorial Day and 4th of July and Veterans Day. And so we ordered them this year, and our flag supplier delivered them about 2 days before, and it was the wrong flags, the wrong everything. And so we just sent them back and said, you know, bah humbug, we're going to shoot for Labor Day. So we ordered from a different supplier. So I still want to do that. I think with or without COVID, I think it would be a nice tradition to have in Windsor. So we are still working towards that. It just, sometimes things happen. And by the time they came in, I don't think our staff could have gotten them on the polls and done it justice. So we'll do it right.
Well, and I want to say this for everybody's benefit, that some of the preliminary conversation on this that goes back a couple months was overall regarding the safety at Boardwalk Park whenever we have a big event. I mean, obviously, safety is our number one concern, whether it's virus-related or whether it's just having 5,000 some people, you know, which specifically the 4th of July brings out in years past into a very confined space after a very long day of fun in the sun and the beverages that can be consumed at Boardwalk Park during the day. So there may be more to come on other safety procedures that we can, you know, institute, you know, going back to Boardwalk Park next year, but I'm sure staff will have more conversations about that beforehand. But yeah, I'd say that the community is very supportive of the 4th of July, but I know staff and our concern too would be to make sure that it's done in a safe manner for everybody that attends, so.
And I can check, to Mr. Soslowski's earlier question, I can check to see if we had a little brush fire in there or something. It was, the Chief Kazin gave me a pretty timely update on the Mr. Humphreys fire on the 3rd. So I'm certain if we had anything of concern in town that night, I would have heard about it right away.
I'm sure the fire was out there, weren't they? Did they have a brush truck or something that
They
was
did.
out on site? Yeah, okay. Any other thoughts, questions, concerns? Otherwise,
What are you gonna do for, the Harvest Festival?
Well, we're having those conversations right now. Because honestly, we've talked, the first conversation was, is this something where we could save a part of Harvest Festival and not others? And I think at least at the staff level, the conversation was, without the parade, what is a Harvest Festival, I mean, it just seems like that's the heart and soul of the entire deal. And if we can't have the parade, should we have any of it? So I would tell you, from the board standpoint, this is something that I wanted to have a discussion with you about really quickly, and see, because again, I think that being in that float and doing Harvest Fest, or just being part of that, you're really impressed on how much the community pours out and what a great event it is. But on the other end, and I guess with COVID and seeing now, I sent a report out earlier from Larimer County. Larimer County cases are going up. Weld County certainly hasn't gone down. We're seeing cases going up, not only throughout the state, but throughout the nation. And we have to make that real concerted decision of, is it the responsible thing to do to have a parade and have thousands of people up and down, 7th Street, where you can't socially distance, where people are all around touching each other. And so, I think it's just, so the decision hasn't been made yet. This is certainly something that would not happen in a vacuum. But staff is this morning, we had a little conversation of, we need to start talking about it, if we can pull this off or not.
Well, and of course, some of you may or may not know that involves the Harvest Fest committee. They're their own committee. That is not really a town board. I mean, the town obviously helps with the parks and the cleanup and stuff, so the town's obviously intimately involved with that event. But, the contracts with the big concert, musical act and stuff like that, and some of the who's the grand marshal. I mean, all of these things are done by the Harvest Fest committee, so it's, I guess it's got to be a dual conversation with us and them.
That's right.
So,
In our musical talent this year, we've got the biggest band we've ever booked.
Great, Parker, great. I look forward to an announcement.
Yeah, well, I think, I think we're gonna have to be flexible. Some things are beyond our control because it's controlled at the state level. And, so many things are kind of changing from day to day. But, if things get postponed or canceled or changed, I think as a community, we just have to be committed to, once things get back to normal, to bring it back bigger and better,
In a safe manner.
In a safe manner, right.
Well, I don't know if the board caught, and I'm trying to think of the name of the speedway. I was kind of down.
Bandamere.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the health department, I guess they had an event and they didn't properly socially distance, or they did whatever, and so they were going to have some sanctions coming out of the state. So I think that public safety and just people's general health should be our first focus, not getting a nasty gram from the state. But certainly it does look like the state is taking this seriously, and they are weighing in on these things. So I don't think we want to be the poster child for just, throwing caution to the wind.
Any other comments, questions? Mr. Bennett, Mr. Kozlowski, you guys good? Okay. Well, with that, we will call tonight's town board work session to a close. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Have a great week.
Welcome back.